Easily the question I get asked the most is, how do I get started in visual effects, or where do I begin? Which program should I learn, or whether to do free tutorials or paid tutorials or go to school? How do I make everything click? It's like, how do I stay consistent and productive while I'm learning? How can I fast track the process and get results? What's the quickest way to get started, get proficient, and land a job fast? So it's no wonder a lot of us get so overwhelmed that we get stuck before we even get started. I'm Al McKay, I'm a visual effects supervisor in Hollywood. I've worked at many studios like Industrial Light and Magic, Blur Studio, Ubisoft, and many others. And I want to share with you a lot of key insights I've accumulated over the past 25 years working in visual effects, and I want to break down a step-by-step approach to get you off the ground and get you started in visual effects right now. One of the big key takeaways I want to share with you in this video is how to cancel out the noise and get laser-like focus on exactly what you should be doing to get the fastest results possible so you can land your dream job in visual effects. Stay tuned. Also, if you find this video valuable, make sure to subscribe to my channel because I don't want you to miss out on all the valuable visual effects tutorials and masterclasses that I'll be sharing regularly. Finally, as you watch this video, I want to make this a discussion. I really value what you have to say, so feel free to leave comments about anything that you find really valuable, key takeaways or questions you have, or other insights that you want to share. So feel free to drop comment after comment into the video as you go through it, and I'll make sure to respond to everything you post. There are so many resources, tutorials, and other places to go, so how do I know which are the right ones? It's so easy to fall into the time trap of watching tutorials or learning new software, meanwhile wondering in the back of our minds whether we're actually investing our time in the wrong place. Should I learn paid content or free content? What sucks the most is just because you pay for something doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. I've put out hundreds of hours of tutorials over my career, and what I've found from time to time is that when someone finds a lesson really valuable, that's when they go and they re-record my lessons, put it out for $200 and start charging money for other people when all of this training was actually available for free. So in the beginning, there's enough great free content out there that there's no real need to be spending money just yet. You're already spending a lot of your time, which is far more valuable, and you should be more concentrating on where to focus that time instead. The other thing to keep in mind is that there is a lot of information out there, but not all of it's good. In fact, 99% of it is terrible. And even the good stuff, if you listen to too many channels, a lot of it can start to conflict. So it's best to start out by exploring different content, but as you start to find resources that you really align with and that you find is really valuable, it's better to start to knuckle down with those particular ones. So try only having 1 to 2 key resources that you really trust, and when you find those, go all in. I'm talking marriage ceremony, house, 2 kids, no looking back. This way you can really invest in their ecosystem and the ways that they're doing everything and go on their journey with them as well, rather than consuming everything that you find and being pulled in too many different directions and having too much overwhelm because of that. So it's really easy to suffer from analysis paralysis. So there's so much free content out there, it just gets overwhelming and you tend to shut down. So cut the fat and invest in only a small number of resources as your general channels to keep learning from. And this doesn't mean that you can't Google problems and other things as you run into it, but it does mean as you find someone that you really align with their kind of thinking, you should align your process for training as well with that. So the first thing you need to understand is when you say, I want to learn visual effects, it's literally like saying, I want to buy a car. It's literally just the start of the conversation. There are so many different areas, platforms, software, disciplines. You could get into TV, or you could get into games, you could get into VR, you could get into motion graphics, animation, modeling, roto, compositing, grading, shaders. You could do so many different things. More so, do you want to be a generalist? Do you want to be a technical director? There's literally an infinite amount of avenues that you can explore. Not to mention the types of software that you can learn, and even within that ecosystem, what are some of the key tools that you might want to specialize in those programs. So if you ever wanted to do, let's say, effects, does that mean that you want to be a water simulation guy, or do you want to go and be a dynamics person? Do you want to be a destruction girl, or do you want to focus more on doing the abstract motion graphics type work, like the procedural animation? Or do you want to specialize more in pyro and fire and explosions and other fluid simulations? It's crazy. So it's no wonder a lot of us get so overwhelmed before we even begin. So here's how to cut through the noise. This is exactly what I tell everybody inside of my mentorship. Have a goal. rather than feeling lost, set a goal. The more specific the goal, the more you can get laser focused concentration on what you really need to do to get results. So if I want to blow things up in Star Wars, try thinking of a certain shot or a memorable sequence in that film. What grabs you the most about it? What is it that's so exciting to you? By being able to simply look at certain visuals that first inspired you when you wanted to get into the industry, it gives you much more clarity about getting specific about everything. And let me know if you want me to elaborate more on this, because this subject is really important. So leave a comment and let me know if you want me to really go deep on this subject. But here's an example. So if you watch Jurassic Park and you loved dinosaurs, and you always imagine creating your own animations of dinosaurs fighting with lightsabers, then that instantly says this about you. I would love to work in character animation, in feature film, specifically more in realistic creature animation. And from there we can start to look at which studios or even which studio specifically did that work that really kind of gravitates you towards it. So in this case it would be Jurassic Park. That would be Industrial Light and Magic. So of course, there's lots of different studios that do that sort of work, both big and small. But again, we want to cut through the noise. So it's easy to say, I want to learn everything about visual effects, but this gives you a much more accurate goal and allows you to have more of a why, which always leads to what. I want to work as a creature animator at ILM. So this is your someday goal, and it's important to have that someday goal. Otherwise, you're just going to feel like you're wasting a lot of time. So this gives you a lot more direction and purpose around everything. So this is the most valuable piece of advice I can give anyone, and it flies over 99% of everyone's heads. And this is that you need to have a laser-focused goal that allows you to get a lot more specific about what you're trying to do. And I know a lot of us at this point always say, yeah, Alan, but I just want to know what software to use. But this is exactly why some people succeed and most people fail. It's because most of us haven't given themselves a real purpose. But I want you to think about this and continue to think about this. Having goals and having a direction you're heading towards is everything. So the other thing is that your someday goal is going to change, and that's okay. So we're not that rigid with ourselves that we have a someday goal and we're going to stick to it always. Even though it was a goal that we set out at the very beginning of our career, we got to understand that as new information and new opportunities come in, as new things spark our interest, our goals are going to shift. But for right now, we're aspiring to make badass creature animations for ILM someday. So that someday goal doesn't mean that you're setting out to work at ILM as a creature animator tomorrow. Realistically, there's multiple hops that you're going to need to do along the way, putting in time at different studios and doing different things before you can get to that point. But having that initial goal really kind of gives you that direction and helps you work towards it, rather than going in all the wrong directions and second guessing yourself constantly and staying overwhelmed the entire time. Trust me. So the other thing is doing your due diligence really helps, because by knowing what your someday goal is, you've also got a place to model. And I don't mean 3D model. What I mean is you're able to look at what they're doing and really start to align your focus with that particular place. It means you're able to look at that dream studio that you want to work at and start to align your focus around what they're doing as well. So in other words, let's say that you want to work at ILM or whatever it might be. What if you start to research them and you realize, hey, they animate in Maya? That's some good information to know starting out. And if you start to look at LinkedIn and start to look at some of the artists that work there, you might start to find other commonalities, such as the places that some of these people studied at, or by looking at their artist demo reels on LinkedIn or on their Vimeo, YouTube, or Zerply, or ArtStation. You can start to see what they're able to do as well, what level they're at when they started to get into the industry. And the more insight that you can get, the better you can set expectations and know exactly what you need to focus on to get to that level quick. So I hope this makes sense. I really want to focus on this for a moment because, again, I get so many people saying to me, Alan, I want to do all this, but I don't know where to start. If you have a goal, if you know a place that you want to work at, it's easier to model what they're doing to quickly get those results. Rather than saying, I want to learn everything in visual effects, it's more important to look at, well, I want to work here as a creature animator and doing this sort of work on these sorts of movies. I can go look at that studio, look at the people who work on it, and I can start to align myself with them. And the information is so available these days that it's very easy to go on LinkedIn, look at who's worked there, or even just look in the movie credits and start to look at what those people were capable of at different parts of their career. You can look at their background information and what kind of things they studied or what they needed to do, like what their common mutual friends might be. whatever it might be, to really align yourself with them, because the more that you can see that recipe, the requirements, this is the proven model, these people went into that studio, therefore you can start to mimic and follow in that direction. You can even reach out to those people and say, hi, I love the work that you guys are doing, or specifically that person, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I'm a student, I'm working my reel, whatever it might be, but you can get access to all of this rather than saying, I want to learn everything and hopefully that will get me a job at ILM someday or wherever you want to work. Again, I hope that this resonates. So again, this needs to become a recipe after a while. After a while, you can kind of deconstruct the result and be able to mimic it yourself. And that's what I do with every part of my career, is that if I'm working in a new area, something that I want to know more about, this is where I will look at the results that are proven. What is a successful model? And I'll look at that. It allows me to cut through the noise and focus on getting the results that are going to get me to get to that place faster. And at that point, it's just a matter of doing it, which is why a lot of people fail before they even begin, because you got that clear step-by-step instructions of what you need to do to get the best results. Having that initial recipe that you've built gives you clear step-by-step instructions on where best to spend your time so you can get the best desired results, which is why most people don't have this. And that's why a lot of people fail before they begin. So it's time to get obsessed. Look for interviews with that studio, with the artist, do your research, learn everything you can about that studio. The tools, the people, where they studied, what advice they can give. I've worked for ILM and I've shared talks and classes that I've taught at the studio on YouTube and other platforms. I've interviewed dozens of top supervisors on my podcast and YouTube channel, and I'm sure other people have done similar as well. So the more that you can learn about their ecosystem, the more equipped you'll be with the right knowledge to simplify your focus in the areas that really count. So there's no better way to cut through the noise than simply start by seeing what you want and then deconstructing it until you can take the steps to obtain it. So what if I'm learning the wrong software, learning the wrong resources, or studying the wrong techniques, focusing on the wrong areas? So by setting that someday goal, a lot of this gets clarified right away. It demystifies so much of the problems that we run into. But I also mentioned that there's potentially multiple hops that you need to take before you can land at that final destination. So in other words, just because you said just because that particular studio uses a lot of advanced shaders, tools, solvers in their own pipeline, it doesn't mean that you need to be mimicking that yourself right away. And I think that a lot of us get overwhelmed in the beginning because we think, well, they're clearly doing it this way, I should follow in their footsteps, rather than really focusing on trying to get that initial momentum. So it's easy to get overwhelmed and try and set yourself up for the win, but the key thing is that we have a someday goal for a reason, rather than a do this tomorrow goal, right? So knowing what you want to do is really important, but right now your goal is all the way over there. And so we want to focus on here. So here should be fun. Here should be easy-ish, and here should be about gaining that initial momentum. So just because you know that you need to use complex and powerful software down the line doesn't mean that you need to start out at that level. So many people hear buzzwords like Houdini, Python, Nuke, and they think, I should go learn all this stuff as well. Not realizing that, yes, they can be powerful, but at the same time, they can also add several layers of complexity to the process that when you're just starting out, you can really derail yourself completely and cause you to give up before you ever really got started. Again, once you know the concepts around VFX, you can easily apply those to other packages. But starting out, if you're playing in a much more complicated sandbox, it's easy to never grasp any of it and quickly get overwhelmed. So that's not to say that you shouldn't start with a more complicated tool, but don't feel like you have to. Maybe Cinema 4D or Blender or something like that resonates more with you initially. So maybe compositing in After Effects makes more sense than Nuke or Fusion. So find what intuitively resonates with you first, and know that you can always start to branch out to other tools as you move forward. And of course, as you get more hungry for knowledge. So it's about getting wins now and the momentum to keep moving forward. And again, your goals are going to change over time. So don't be surprised that as you get more invested into visual effects, that animating dinosaurs at a feature film studio was one thing that excited you back in the day. But now maybe you're more interested in VR or video games and the tools and direction completely change. It happens. And that's why it's about learning and strengthening our abilities with a direction in mind right now at the moment. So focusing on the wins, not the overwhelm. Okay, so stop listening to the weirdos. Finally, there's a lot of weirdos out there that are going to tell you the software that I use is the best. You're wasting your time with all these other ones. I love hearing this stuff. So some, not everyone, but a lot of Houdini users, usually more at the beginner level, talk about like 3ds Max and Maya, they could be discontinued soon. And Houdini is the only true software. And that's despite all these other products, Max and Maya specifically, completely obliterating Houdini in sales. So it's not about which software is the best one, they're all good. But there are some weirdos out there who seem that insecure with themselves that they need to convince you and everyone else that their software that they use is the best as a way to kind of like validate themselves. So this was happening 25 years ago, where you would get all these Lightwave guys that would go around telling Maya and Max users and even Softimage people that their software is the greatest. Like, who cares? Seriously. So I personally use all of these tools depending on the project and the client's needs, but I'm not that insecure that I need to try and convince other people that the software that I use needs to be the best and that no one else should use anything other than what I use. And that's exactly the problem, is that a lot of junior level people tend to go around trying to get everyone else to drink their Kool-Aid. And this is the problem for a lot of us, is that we tend at the beginning not to know who to trust. So anyone who's had a few small wins or whatever will tend to listen to those people instead of ever questioning why or really kind of doing our own research. And this can be really dangerous. I get it all the time that people are like, well, you know, I heard that Max is going away in a year or two and that I shouldn't invest my time into that. Or I heard Maya is this dying thing that no one's going to use anymore. And the thing is that there is software half-life that some people will experience, that certain software programs will go down. But do your research and look at, well, who owns these companies? How big are these companies? How much revenue? How many users are using them? Rather than just assuming, well, the guy down the street told me that everything is going to collapse except for their thing that they use because it's the best. I personally wouldn't be using all the software that I use if I didn't think that there was going to be a lifetime investment with them. Otherwise I would be focusing on what is the best investment of my time. Again, having used all the software for so long, I want to make the right decisions rather than just trusting what Joe Blow down the street says or whatever it might be. So again, question what people say, because everyone feels that they're so insecure about themselves that they need that validation by saying that they use the best software. And it makes me feel like those people are the ones that tend to not have anything else to really get that validation from. So therefore it's about, well, I use a Mac, well, I use a PC, so therefore I'm better than you. And it's that kind of mentality that's just so insecure and so petty, rather than focusing on, well, look, can you do great work? Are there studios that use this software? Awesome. That's what it should be about. I would recommend using Cinema 4D in the beginning if it's something that resonates with you, because if it gets you to understand the concepts and gets you to start moving forward, it's better to do that than try to say, well, I'm going to go and learn all this complicated stuff that's going to literally confuse me so much that I'll never even get started because I won't know how to. So focus on understanding the concepts and doing what you do, make it fun for yourself rather than trying to focus too much on which tool I should be focusing on the most. Focus on what works for you, because everything is transferable. I can pick up any program in a couple of days. It doesn't mean I know everything about it, but I will be able to do what I need to because I know 3D. I can then say, well, where's the button located in here? I need to do this result. I know that the requirements to do it would require this, this, and this. I just need to find that in the package. Okay, so once you know how to do it, it's easy. So rather than trying to convince other people to use my software, fortunately, I have a life and I'm not going to worry about what other people are using, because I'm not worried about, the bigger picture of which software is going to die tomorrow, because likely the ones that are selling really well and are owned by one of the biggest software companies in the world probably have a good lifetime ahead of them. So the next time that somebody tells you that this software sucks and theirs is better, just laugh and roll your eyes, and maybe they'll go back to Reddit or wherever they belong. So like I said, once you understand the concepts inside out, you can apply that to anything. And like I said, I can confidently go into a new software package that I haven't used before, knowing that I know enough in 3D that I can get my bearings very quickly. So once you know the concepts, it's easy to be just focusing and applying the process like you would normally do just inside a different package. All the software and features are all located in slightly different places, but the process is exactly the same. So the big secret again is about setting goals. Learning software without a task in mind is like reading the dictionary. You'll find a lot of words interesting, but if you're not applying these words to actual sentences, it'll never stick. So if you decide that you want to blow up a building, everything that you're learning, everything that you're working on is going to be directed to creating that effect of blowing up that building. You're going to ask questions that you wouldn't have otherwise asked, and you're going to be much more focused on learning specific steps that you need, rather than trying to learn everything. And you're able to really measure your success because you can see yourself moving forwards, not backwards, towards that goal that you're setting. And this way you're going to get excited about what you're doing, and that's the key to growth. Okay, so in other words, if I'm working on learning how to blow up a building, as I said, this is important because that way everything that I'm doing is much more laser focused. Okay, so rather than looking at, okay, I'm going to go in and pick up the Maya book and I'm going to learn everything and go through it all like that. That isn't making it stick. It isn't going to apply to anything you're doing. And when you go to then apply that to something, you're still going to need to reference the manual. You're still going to need to go back there. But on top of that, you're going to get stuck with questions that you have along the way. By giving yourself a set task, it means that you're specifically looking to apply knowledge to what you're learning along the way. You're specifically looking at how everything is going to resonate to what you're doing. Okay, so this is the important part. So let's recap for a second. Rather than rolling the dice and saying, my friend's dog told me that this software is the best, so I guess I shouldn't question that and I should just go invest 6 months of my life learning that software. After all, he is a talking dog. That means he must be pretty smart. Let's look at what it is that actually excites you. Game cinematics, or a film, or a creative commercial, a cartoon, whatever it is that became the why for why you want to learn this in the first place. And then start doing your research. Who made it? What tools did they use? Who are the artists? And what kind of backgrounds do they have? And what do they learn to get where they are? Everything you learn will help you get a clearer understanding and a better direction for what you need to focus on. And the best part is, all of this information is out there. It's creepy. Most of the time, we've made ourselves all so available that it's not that hard to find everything that you need. So for instance, you could be watching a film, and then you could look in the film credits of a movie and see which studio actually worked on that, and then you can see all the names of the artists involved. And then you can simply Google some of these artist names, plus demo reel or Vimeo or portfolio, and find out what you wanted, find out a good chunk of information about them. Or you could go on LinkedIn. So you could even go as far as to reach out to these people. And I have other videos on my website specifically about how to craft emails, what to say, how to build a relationship with people that you want to reach out to. So that way you're not coming off as creepy or something like that. But if you are passionate about visual effects and you want to be successful, it helps to reach out and make contact with these people who are already in the industry. So some of these people might be too busy, they might ignore you, but the more you do it, the more opportunities you can create, which also might help down the line when you're finally starting to look for job opportunities. Also, if you want to join my inner circle, it's free. I've got loads of email templates you can use that will help you be able to write effective emails to build connections with others in the industry. So just go to alanmckay.com/inside and you can sign up for my free inner circle. So learn with intent. So maybe you know what software you should be using, but you don't have access to that software right now. Or whatever reason is just too complicated for you at the moment, or you're hitting that mental roadblock. So right now it's more important to know what tools you have at your disposal, as well as what type of work you really kind of gravitate towards. It also helps you get a clearer idea of at least what you want to do. Should you learn character animation, motion graphics, or effects? So from here, it'll help you get a better idea of what tools to actually invest in. But the most important thing to do is set those goals. And it's easy as Googling introduction lesson to 3ds Max and watch some of so it's easy to Google introduction lesson to 3ds Max and watch someone as they thoroughly explain the interface and what it does. But in reality, I honestly can't see how any of that is really going to stick. I find it much easier to decide on something that I want to set out to do, and then you set out to make that your goal. So in other words, if you're excited about making an asteroid crash into a city, maybe Google or YouTube a tutorial specifically on how to make that effect and make this your starting point. So this way it's something that you're actually passionate about and you can set out to build it. So video tutorials are really great for this because as long as the person making the video is very clear about what they're doing, you can always follow along and see what they're doing every step of the way. Even if you don't exactly know what all those things they're doing are, you can at least visually see what they're doing and then you can mimic it yourself, and you can start to Google all the bits and pieces to get a further explanation about the button that they clicked on and what exactly that does if they're failing to explore that or explain it themselves. And when you get to a point where you're like, what the hell is the material editor? That's when you can start to Google tutorials on what the material editor is. And you can start to branch out or web out into additional tutorials to get further explanation about that. It makes way more sense to have context rather than going and being so broad. Again, having a goal means that you're going to go down that avenue of learning that particular subject, and you'll have an end result in the end, and you'll also, on top of that, you know that you're moving towards that goal, rather than learning lots of stuff and not really knowing if it's actually clicking, if you're actually making progress, if you're getting a better understanding. So also, by watching tutorials specifically on that subject, you're going to learn what they're doing. You're going to see all the steps, and it's going to give you ideas. It's going to make you have more questions that you need to have answered before you can achieve that goal. So therefore, you're going to web out and find the relevant information that you need to learn. Hopefully that makes sense. So the best way to learn is not just in case, is just in time. In other words, whenever I want to learn something, it's just in time for what I need it to be, rather than learning something for the sake of learning it. That way it's more applicable, and that way I'm going to grasp it much quicker, and I'm going to have intent, my why, behind it. In other words, I'm going to be very goal-focused in my learning. So I find learning anything is much more easier, and it tends to be a lot more natural when you have a goal in mind that you're working towards, rather than just being shown around the interface. There are so many questions around this topic of how to make things stick. So should I go to school? Should I do paid courses? And of course, even bigger, more important questions I try to cover and will continue to cover over this topic. So if you aren't already subscribed to a lot of my channels, take a few seconds to subscribe and follow me, because I don't want you to miss out on a lot of the topics that I do cover, whether it's a lot of live streams I do on Instagram, or whether it's a lot of video content that I post on YouTube, or just on Facebook, where I like to hang out and post more personal things, as well as my podcast and everything else that I'm regularly putting out information around. So before we go any further, just click the subscribe button right now. So right now, before you start to worry about all the big questions you have, it's important to really kind of focus on getting that initial momentum right now. So getting to enjoy this and making it fun for yourself. I've got a lot of paid courses that cover a lot of advanced film visual effects subjects, but for you or anyone else, what I would recommend, just start with the free stuff and just see what resonates for you. But like I said, I do recommend joining my inner circle. It's my free email list, which I regularly send out a lot of free classes, guides, and I host free webinars for everyone to interact with me live. And this is a way to get a lot of those questions answered. But I do also give a lot of industry advice about how to break into the industry and build your brand, negotiate money, as well as how to build an irresistible demo reel and how to work from home or build your own studio. So if you're interested, just go to alanmckay.com/inside. But doing tutorials and learning is just part of the process. So one of the big things that you need to understand is that staying consistent is really tough. So really focus on developing habits and building a routine around all of the things that you're doing, and put all of this into your calendar. And this way you can make a commitment to yourself to devote 5 to 7 hours per week, improving your skills and learning new techniques and really kind of focusing on personal growth. So you should be doing this always. And if you're trying to make an asteroid, make that week about learning how to create an asteroid and set goals wherever possible with that. And it feels great to be able to mark these off as you get better and better at what you do. But also understand that part of learning is the resistance that comes with it. So if this was easy, it wouldn't be worth doing. So understanding that learning to overcome obstacles and dealing with the resistance is all part of the process. And a lot of us are really naive to this, so they go about expecting everything to be ultra easy. And the problem with that is the minute that things become difficult, we just give up and we try something completely different. So learning requires problem solving, and it feels great to be able to loop back to something that was once difficult and know that you can confidently tackle it now that you've figured it all out, as well as know that you've acquired a new skill and you'll never run into that resistance again. So understand that problem solving is part of the process and resistance is as well. Okay, don't go into expecting to learn something thinking that it's going to be a walk in the park, because otherwise it's going to be a rude shock when you actually need to do work. Okay, but more importantly, that's part of the process. That's going to make you feel great about it when you're able to tick that off and say, I just acquired a new skill. I'm never going to run into that problem again because now I'm a ninja at that and I'm confident about it. Okay, this is the whole point for us, is to get better at all these different things, acquire new skills, keep growing and getting better and improving on ourselves as we go. Okay, so add that skill to your arsenal rather than adding it to your list of things that you failed and gave up on. Okay, it's a lot easier to give up, but in the grand scheme of things, is going to really make you feel shitty when you look at the list, the pile of things that you gave up on, rather than looking at the pile of things that you acquired a new skill through, but it was a lot more grueling to get to that point. So the other part of this is to find a community of people where you can congregate with them and ask them questions, as well as you can get help and you can share your work and get feedback. And more importantly, you can get inspired as well. So seeing other people's work, getting insights into how they did it. The more you feel part of that community, the more that you'll stick to what you're doing, and the more that you won't feel that you're alone, and the less likely you'll ever feel like giving up. So there's plenty of forums to go on, whether it's CG Talk or ArtStation or many others, as well as Facebook groups and other online resources. And of course, going out there and finding like-minded people at events or even just your local city hangouts, there's so many infinite possibilities of places to go build up your network of people and have those, areas that communities that you can be a part of. Finally, make sure you post your work constantly, whether it's on your Instagram or your Facebook or on these forums. You can post on everywhere, but the whole point is to have that habit of posting your stuff regularly, because then you can see your work in progress work others get to as well, which means they can encourage you or they can give constructive feedback. And on top of that, it really helps when you get to be able to see your progress grow over time. You'll begin to be able to look back and measure, this is where I was a month ago, because it's so easy to get lost in this and feel like, man, I suck. But when you see like, wow, I sucked more a month ago than I do now, it helps give you that glint of hope as you move forward. Oh yeah, and tag me in your posts. Feel free to tag me in all of your work in progress work. I'd be more than happy to say something encouraging or give some feedback wherever possible. So if it's on Instagram, just Alan McKay Official, or Facebook, Twitter, whatever. But feel free to tag me in this. I'd be more than happy to help out wherever I can. Okay, so if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel right now. Just click the subscribe button. Also, something that you're going to be interested in is regularly I put out a lot of free visual effects classes, guides, and other valuable content. This is stuff that I only share with my subscribers. So head over to my website and sign up for my free newsletter. Just head over to alanmckay.com. Just open up a tab and go to alanmckay.com right now. I've also got a lot of free guides, my podcast, as well as interviews with a lot of industry leaders such as feature film directors, supervisors at Weta, ILM, id Software, as well as roundtables with entire studio production teams on specific movies that they've worked on, and so much more, as well as a lot of free templates, masterclasses, and other high-value training. So my website again, alanmckay.com. Make sure to open up a browser, load it up. And now I want to turn it over to you. What forums, websites, Facebook groups, and other resources do you regularly visit? I'd love for you to quickly leave a comment, share what websites you find are really valuable for learning, or even just great communities that you share a lot of your work in, or read up on the latest visual effects news. So leave a comment right now. I would love to hear from you.